Hello, beautiful people from Essential Empowerment. My name is Linda Miller. I'm from Linda's Essential Science, and I'm one of Meg's beautiful leaders in her gorgeous diamond team. So I wanted to jump on today because I've been talking recently to a lot of people about their gut and gut health. And I wanted to share a few little insights with you guys and give you a bit of a short presentation on gut health and maybe help you become a little bit more curious and see how these incredible oils and the supplements that doTERRA provide can be such an incredible way at supporting your own gut health. So the gut is exceptionally complex, and I run workshops that go for between 2 to 4 hours on gut alone. So I'm going to try to encompass a very broad, large sort of topic into a 10-15 minute live video. So see how I go. So basically, your gut starts from your mouth and it ends at your backside in your rectum, in your bottom, where the poo comes out. Okay, also through the urinary tract where you urinate, where you wee, and that's also how you excrete waste and things that we eat. So the first thing that's really important, so I'm just going to give you little tidbits to take away, not so much of the why as I'd like to do, because that's my jam. When you eat, the first part of your digestive tract is your teeth. When we munch on our food, we need to break the food down, and as we break the food down, we're actually using the saliva that's in our mouth to start the digestive process. The saliva has digestive enzymes in it, so it begins breaking down. Even the simple carbohydrates in your food start to get broken down in your mouth. Now, when you take a bite of, say, let's just say a salad roll, you bite that salad roll, you can't really swallow that whole. You might be able to, but that's quite challenging. So when we chew, where the role of our early part of our digestive tract is to reduce the size of the food. So say the size of the food is like 100 little circles long, 100 little units long, okay, for simplicity's sake. So say that is 100 units long. You're going to then your mouth is going to start to break that down. It might chomp it down in the average person down to, say, 20 units, and then we swallow it and it gets into our stomach. And then our stomach's job, our stomach's role, hey beautiful Tash, is to actually munch that down into as smaller pieces as possible. And realistically what we want to do, hey Jess, what we want to do once those pieces, we've got 100 units down to 20, swallowed into our stomach acids and digestive enzymes within our stomach actually start to break it down even smaller. It has this movement which just starts to munch all the food up, and we want it to get to really small particles. By the time it hits our stomach, our small intestine, it gets expelled into that. We want it to be between 1 to maybe 4 circles or units in size. Now, after about half an hour of munching, that's what happens. The food goes into our small intestines. But what happens in today's society is two really huge things. Well, there's actually a lot more, but we'll just stick with the first two, is we don't chew well enough. We inhale. We don't chew our food properly. So the food that is going into our stomach is way too big. So then the stomach acid contents is often too high, which means the pH is too high, which means the stomach acid is actually really low. We want the pH to be like about 1.6, but a lot of people who suffer from digestive problems, their pH may sit up around 4. And this 4 actually means that the enzymes and the acidic nature of the stomach is not at the way we want it to be. It's way too low. We want high acidic content, which means low pH. It's a little bit confusing. But we want that, and we want to bring that down so that these bits can get munched up and really broken down into really fine particles, 1 to 4 units in size. That's it. And what happens when the stomach acid is too low or the pH is too high, we don't do that. That doesn't happen well enough. And after about half an hour, that gets dumped into our small intestine. Now, if the food is too large, then when it gets into the small intestine, that's when we're going to start to get bloating and pain and ickiness at that top part of our digestive tract. And it means that the food then is not going to be small enough for the nutrients to be absorbed out of it. And that creates a whole host of issues. That can create an increase in intra-abdominal pressure, which actually can force stomach contents up and out. And that can be a sign of reflux. That can be a cause of reflux. So often reflux is treated as being too high stomach acid, so the pH, or there's too much of it. which is actually not usually ever the case. It's often the opposite. So the question is, why is the stomach acid coming up into our esophagus to create the reflux and the heartburn symptoms? And it generally is not that there's too much. It generally is often that there's not enough acidic nature to that stomach acid. So we've got to chew our food properly, people. Really, really chew our food. The other thing we shouldn't be doing is drinking water in large quantities when we're eating food. And the reason for that is our pH should be about 1.6. If we're chucking water, which is neutral, which is a pH of 7, if we're chucking that into there, it's going to dilute that stomach acid down and raise the pH, which means it's not going to be as effective at digesting that food. So then it's in our small intestines, and what it's meant to do is those particles are really little. They're meant to pass through all of the little finger-like projections that are in the small intestine to absorb all the nutrients and the minerals and the enzymes and the toxins and whatever else is in the food that we eat, the chemicals, into our bloodstream. Okay, and then it will go, usually bypass through to the liver and then out into the rest of our body. So this is a really important part of our system, and the pH in that area should be about 4. What happens is we get a big dump of bicarb soda in from the stomach into the small intestine, so that pH will actually be safe for that area. Now sometimes this dump will actually increase it too much so that we're not absorbing as well. And the other main problem that happens in this stage is that we need good blood supply around that small intestine to really help to absorb the food out of it. So if our blood supply is not adequate in that area because of potentially stress, because when we're in a fight and flight stress response, what happens is our body actually removes the blood away from the small intestines, and it actually then speeds that digestive process up because it doesn't want to be wasting precious energy fleeing from the tiger or fighting the dude with the spear attacking the family. It doesn't want to be wasting precious energy digesting food, so it will try to get rid of it faster. That's the nervous runs and the nervous vomits, okay? The nausea that you get from nerves is generally your body trying to get rid of whatever is in there. So if this is the case, you're not going to absorb, again, the nutrients out of the food that you're eating well enough. And that can be really problematic. And over time, having too large food and not absorbing enough and not a good enough blood supply, and often other factors that I won't go into in this, but other factors can actually cause what we call increased gut permeability, which basically just means, they call it leaky gut, means that the cells start to separate a little bit and let through things into the bloodstream that normally shouldn't get in there. Things like gluten, casein, gluten from wheat, casein from our dairy products. So these are important because our body we're not meant to have these proteins in our bloodstream. So our body will mount an immune response against those proteins, which is going to increase our inflammation and is also going to potentially create opportunity for autoimmune conditions to come down the track, because interestingly, the gluten protein actually mimics in structure the tissues of our thyroid, and sometimes our bodies can think that our thyroid tissue is actually gluten protein that it needs to attack and get rid of. And then we end up with things like Graves' disease or Hashimoto's. Some ideas, some schools for food for thought in that. Then after all of the nutrients hopefully are absorbed out of the food in the small intestine, it's going to go into our large intestine. And our large intestine, it's a job there it's where all the fibre and what's left over basically is formulated to kind of push out the rest of our system to get the waste out of it. So this is where fluid can be reabsorbed into that space. Other toxins get dumped into that from our liver processing things. Bile can be excreted. Fatty excess fat can come out there, which is just part of the reason why our poo is brown. That's where a lot of the toxins are getting pushed back into our intestines to then be excreted out in the poo that we poo out. So the pH in this level is about 7. And if the food that comes down the small intestine, which doesn't munch it up any further, is too large, it doesn't know what to do with it. So what it will actually do is ferment it. So this is why you get gas, and this is why you get that lower abdominal bloating, that down the chain stuff. So we want to chew our food. We want to have good stomach acid contents with a good low pH. We want to have good blood supply around our small intestines. We want to have adequate liver function, so when it gets to our large intestines, that things are getting piled in there to get out of our body. And in our large intestine, we need the food small enough so that all the bacteria in there don't ferment it to a massive stage. You get all this gas. It's a very, very simple process right now that I'm trying to hopefully make sound somewhat normal. So then we pull it out, and there's our digestive tract. Now, what do we do to support it? Because a lot of the time we don't have the good quality ratios of bacteria in our large intestine, so we don't actually go through that last fermentation proper process that we need to do. We understand that that can be really problematic. We also know that the blood and gut speak to each other, okay, and that there's links going this way, highways going this way, and highways going this way. And over 90% of the highways actually go from the gut to the brain. We used to think the brain talked to the gut, but it's actually the other way around. The gut talks mainly to the brain. So when the bacteria, there's problems in here and there's an imbalance, this bacteria can actually tell the brain to eat certain types of food because it wants to be fed. So that's also quite interesting when you think about sugar cravings and bits and pieces like that. Oh, there's so many more things I could tell you about. But what do we do to support it? So the things that I do to support my digestive tract, because I know that there's certain foods that I shouldn't eat, but I choose to eat them anyway. Who doesn't? So when I do choose to say drink the wine and eat the beautiful bread and dips, and my stomach starts to get those symptoms, I will take internally Digest-Zen. I put a drop in the bottom of a small glass of water when I start to feel those symptoms, so usually 10 to 15 minutes after I've eaten, and I'll drink that down, and that really helps to support me. I double whammy it too and pop a drop with some fractionated coconut oil and rub it in a clockwise direction. When you think about what happens clockwise, I'm not sure how this is going to show you, but the way our stomach runs, so our large intestine, that's what we're massaging when we massage it on, comes from the base down on the right hand side around near where our appendix would be, and it comes up over the top and then back down on the left hand side. So that's why we say clockwise. Imagine you have a clock and you guys can read the clock, and that's the direction that I'm rubbing. So I do that as well. Some people even find just simply diffusing Digest-Zen is really awesome too. They have some other beautiful products. If you don't like the taste or the smell of fennel or anise, like the licoricey smell, you can simply use ginger and peppermint. Coriander is really soothing to the stomach as well, so that you can make your own digestive blend up as well. There's actually some really fantastic products out in the US that are incredibly good to support our gut health too. And I'll talk about them in 2 secs. We do want to mention an oil called Zendocrine, which is a really great oil for assisting our bodies in mobilizing heavy metals and assisting our liver to do that detoxification process that it needs to do so desperately. So Zendocrine is also another one that's really great at helping support your digestive tract as well as your detoxification pathways. So that's something to think about too. Now the products that they have in the States, apart from obviously Lifelong Vitality, which I'm sure if you've been on this at all, you would notice it, is the GX Assist. So that is an incredible product. GX Assist improves our microbiome. It is a brilliant, brilliant product. It's just designed to support our bacteria, basically. It will, it's got things like oregano and clove in it, and what they actually do is help to balance our good and bad bacteria out. So we know that it can be quite selective. The other one that they do is PB Assist. PB Assist is their probiotic. It's a fantastic one. It comes in a very cool delivery system, so you get lots of different sorts of bits and pieces in there, and it's actually comes with a prebiotic too, which means that the bacteria that's releasing have something to eat so that they proliferate better. Okay, so when they get into our system, it's actually going to release at the right levels, not just in the stomach acid area where they might not survive. It'll release in the small intestines and lower down into that large intestine area. So it's a different release system. It's very cool. They look really space age. They're really fun. And then there's a product called Terrazyme. Terrazyme is incredible from a digestive enzyme point of view. So it assists our body to absorb, to break the food down, and to assist in absorbing the small intestine, to absorb all the nutrients and vitamins and bits and minerals out of the food that we're actually eating. I think that's enough for me today. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight into what our gut health is, why it's important to understand that everything we eat gets absorbed unless it's really fibre, and to know that what we put in our mouths is really, really important. There's heaps of great products out on in doTERRA that can really assist you in your gut health. And jump onto my group, Linda's Essential Science, on the Facebook. Add yourself to that group, and if you type in the word gut, you'll find lots of bits and pieces and information on there. Hopefully that has been informative for you guys. Love and cuddles, and happy, what's today? Happy Thursday. Bye.